All right. Then welcome everyone. We would like to start now. So again, apologize for the delay. We had some technical issues, but now everything has been solved. So we are very good to go. And now to kick off our training. Yeah, welcome, as I said, to the IDFC 2025 Biodiversity Finance training series. First of all, I would like to say a few words about who we are and what we are doing. With whom are you today here in this meeting? So about us, very briefly, we are from the Frankel School of Finance Management and working very closely together with Ghislaine and the IFD team, the IDFC facility. And in order to implement this training series, I will say a few words about it in a few minutes. Frankel School is a leading business school here in Europe, in Germany. We are holding the Triple Crown accreditation, which is the AFCSB, AMBA, and EQUIS, the three main certifications for business schools. And we are working in different areas such as, we have the academic programs, we have a big team of professional education, but also doing a lot of consultancy and applied research and policy advice for different governments, but also for donor institutions around the world. Speaking about around the world, we are working in more than 130 countries at the moment, especially through advisory projects, partnerships as well with different institutions. And especially looking at the topic of today's session about biodiversity finance or climate or biodiversity sustainability related topics. We are working especially through the two institutions or institutes at Frankel School, which is the Frankel School UNAP Collaborating Center of Climate and Sustainable Energy Finance. So to say, a collaboration between the UN Environment Program and the Frankel School. And also, on the other hand, rather looking at the corporate sector, working with having here at Frankel School the Future Institute for Sustainable Transformation, looking especially at how to transform companies to become climate resilient and low emission. About myself, so my name is Jonas Flair. I'm Director for Green Sustainable Finance in the Executive and Professional Education Division at Frankel School of Finance and Management. In the past, I have led several global programs for professionals in education, such as, including IFC, GCR, but also European Investment Bank and several other multi-donor institutions. We also pioneered back then, I think more than 15 years ago, online hybrid learning when it was not yet common sense, so to say, to also have online seminars and online trainings. We started with that, and my background is in natural resource governance and development with several certifications, including the Frankel School in sustainable and climate finance. So I'm very happy to be here with you and to kick off our series. But I'm not alone here today. I'm here together with my colleague, Fabian Garavito Flores. And Fabian, do you want to also quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Very welcome to this training series. We're really excited and happy with what we have prepared. My background is in ecosystem services, risk management, and environmental engineering. So I support the acquisition and development of sustainable finance projects in different regions. So that includes biodiversity finance and climate risk projects for the Frankel School UNEP Collaborating Center.
Thank you, Fabian. I think to kick us off, we would like to understand, because we are so many participants from so many different institutions here, and we want to make this interactive. You will see it from time to time that we have some kind of a post. We used Slido for that, so I would kindly ask you to scan the following QR code or go to the website slido.com. You will need this link on your phone or even on your browser later as well. For several activities which we have planned in the session for you. But we would like to frame it a bit and also want to understand a bit about your background. And we would like to kick us off with the question, what do you associate with the term biodiversity finance? If you hear that in your daily work, what are your first associations with that? Just choose or write whatever what you associate with that. And then we collect a few thoughts and to see where we are going to. I'll give you a bit of time. Just make use of the scan the QR code with your phone or go to the website slido.com. planet protection, respectful. Very good. No, it's coming up. Very good. Nice. So this is at least good to see that this activity is working. Okay, so a lot of people have already responded. TNFD, there's someone else still typing. If you're still typing in their words. So we have definitely TNFD, Task Force on Nature-related financial disclosures. We will also deal with that in one of the next sessions. Nature-related risks, yeah. Planet protection, sustainability, preservation of natural species. Very nice. Nature-based solutions. So it's really like looking a bit about how to deal with that. Finance of conservation and protection of the nature is new topic, definitely. But we will see also not too new. Agriculture, where it's very relevant as well. So looking at a bit of the sector perspective. Climate environment. Nice. So yes, thank you so much. I think this gives already a good glimpse of different topics, and everyone is associating something different with that. Opportunities, nice. Also to see this nature first approach. Yeah. So also see some advanced utilize private capital or mobilizing private capital. Yeah, also nice. So we see everyone is associating something different with that, and what we will try now within the next this year and also the upcoming years is really like to take you on a journey, on a training journey, learning journey, to really deep dive to different of the topics which you have just mentioned, including the TNFD. So with that, we have designed this Biodiversity Finance training series for you together with AFD and the IDFC Secretariat. And we would like to start today with the first online session. Then we will have another about the science of nature and biodiversity. Then we have another session in June about, and end of June, I think you have received the invite already, about the nature biodiversity finance landscape. So we will have a look about the financing role rather. Then we have another session in July, towards end of July, about biodiversity strategy and transition plans. So looking at what are the different international agreements and looking from a more strategic perspective. Then we are having our on-site event. I think most of you, a lot of institutions have already signed up for that event. If not, please do so. It will take place from 8 to 12 of September in France. So we also at the moment together with the team setting up the detailed agenda. I think we had shared it also with one of the stakeholder meetings earlier. And then after that, which is more the highlight of the year, we are still having 2 more online sessions, which actually build up on the on-site event. We will have a look in October, rather on the TNFD application, and then with more practical session, and then another session in November about evaluation methodologies for biodiversity investments. Then I think this was basically like what we have envisaged. And as I said, today we would like to kick off with the first session, which is like the session about the science of nature and biodiversity. To raise a bit of expectations, the objectives here really to raise the awareness, to bring us all on the same page, so to say. Some of you are maybe from the sustainability teams in your institution, in your bank. Others are maybe from other areas. And maybe the topic might be new. So our objective, our goal is we'd like to bring you on the same page, and then so also if you have maybe to want to share some experience from your institution, from your bank, or how to approach and how to deal with certain topics, you please feel free to engage, and so that we have this quite interactive. Since we expected a lot of participants, you will see that we'll also do some interactive, included some interactiveness through the Slido. So please don't close the link. We will use it from time to time. And yes, if you have questions, you can either use the chat, or we will try to monitor it. Otherwise, we will just do also some breaks in order that you can you ask your questions. Having said that, what can you expect from this session? So first of all, we will look at the setting the scene. So we will discuss the essential concept that everyone understands. Then we will also give here and there some practical examples and also some food for thought. Starting with nature as an asset, going through ecosystems as capital goods and also like ecosystem services, biological diversity and also levels, especially special distribution loss, also benefits for society and economy. And then in the second section, we will discuss about diversity loss and biodiversity and the financial system, looking especially of impact and dependencies, but also especially about physical transition risks, which the concept you might already be familiar with, because of the climate discussion, and then also discuss some transmission channels. And if there's time, also we will have some Q&A and maybe also give you the floor then to ask your questions and also to share your experiences, especially. Yeah, as I've said, we will start now with the first section, and as we would like to start this section first with another poll. So asking the question, what does nature mean to you? Let's take a moment to connect personally with the topic of nature, biodiversity, which we have started now to discuss. We often hear or often discuss biodiversity sometimes in the terms of data, maybe of policies and global challenges, but its core nature is something could be also very deeply personal. So think about what does nature mean to you? You can use the Slido, include what your feelings are. How do you see nature? What does it mean to you? Then we wait a few seconds and then we go on. Good, a few have responded already. If you're still typing. As I said, there's no right or wrong. Everyone has a different association with that. But I really like that. Okay, we still wait. There's still people typing before we comment on it. Just wait a few more seconds. Okay, but we can already see. So yeah, I think there are three main areas. So harmony, not live in harmony with nature. Nature is life. Nature is also the future of our existence. But a lot of other connection with nature, existence, health, to conserve, not really an action. Also nature related to peace or blessing, or even have a balance. As you see, there are different association with that, and it really helps us a bit also like to visualize, okay, the diversity, what we have in our own connection to the natural world. And also we see already here that it reminds us of why this topic is becoming momentum and why it matters so much. So thank you so much for participating in this little poll. And now I would like to hand over to my colleague Fabian, so that he first discuss the first concepts. Fabian.
Thank you, Jonas.
And quickly, just let me know when I need to move, because I have to. just let me know when I need to move.
Yeah, I'll let you know. So yeah, it was really good to see all the associations and the meaning you all gave to nature. So we will dig into some of those concepts in today's training session and see why nature and biodiversity, like both are so important. So let's start with three very common and important concepts. So we have nature, natural capital, and natural asset. So if we examine the concept of nature, it is essential to note that we refer to everything around us. So this includes all living species and the elements they interact with. So for example, stones. So they are also part of nature. So here we refer to the natural world with an emphasis on the diversity of living organisms and their interactions. And in contrast, we have natural capital, which refers to stock of renewable and non-renewable natural resources like plants or animals that combine to yield benefits to people. And then we have natural assets, which refer to raw materials that occur naturally and can be used for economic production or consumption. So natural capital, broad concept encompassing all natural resources and ecosystem services, which we will discuss later, and natural assets, specific elements within natural capital that can be quantified and valued for economic use. The next one, please. And here we can appreciate the interaction between human capital, produced capital, and nature capital, and how nature acts as the foundation for the production of human goods and services and other benefits to people, such as food or health protection. We can also see here how produced and human capital have an impact on nature. So produced capital are capital goods embodied in human-made goods or structures. So we have roads, buildings, machines, and equipment. And human capital refers to the productive wealth embodied in labor, skills, and knowledge. Natural capital then provides natural resources and regulating services to produce this sort of capital, as well as food, health, and, for instance, coastal protection for human capital. And the next one, please. So let's continue with other very important concepts that are interconnected. Here we will examine ecosystems as capital goods, referring to the natural system and its components that provide valuable services and resources, which are crucial to understand, particularly in this case, when we want to conceptualize the economics of biodiversity and all their components. So we have genes, which are segments of DNA, and they act like the instruction manual for living organisms. So they provide all the information needed for the growth, development, and function. And in the big framework of biodiversity, genes contribute to the variety of traits and characteristics that different species exhibit. So it is important to notice that within ecosystems as a whole, genetic diversity, it's really crucial for the adaptability and resilience of populations to environmental changes. So it really ensures the overall health and the balance of any system. Then we have individuals, which are single organisms within species. So for instance, we can have you as a person, your pet, a moose, a palm tree, a whale, and even a tapeworm. They all are individuals. So each individual belongs to a specific species, which is a unique type of organism. So in ecosystems, the interaction among individuals, whether they are grazing cows or palm trees or microscopic bacteria, shape the overall health and balance of the environment. We also have a population, which refers to the group of individuals within the same species interacting in a specific area. So you can think of it as a community of similar creatures that look alike. So like a group of squirrels in a forest or a school of fish in the ocean. So these populations interact within each other and their environment, forming ecosystems. So when we talk about populations, we are essentially discussing the building blocks of these larger ecosystems. And we also have communities, which refer to a group of different species living together in a specific area, like a neighborhood of plants or animals and microorganisms. So these species also interact each other, sharing resources and influencing one another's survival and growth. So in the context of biodiversity, a community represents the diversity of life within an ecosystem. And then we have, as we were mentioning, ecosystems, which are smaller areas where living and non-living components interact. So ecosystems are like nature's neighborhood. They are made up of living organisms like plants, animals, and microorganisms, and their physical environment, such as soil, water, and air. And these are interconnected communities that are working together. So they are providing essential services like clean water, pollination, climate regulation. And you can take as an example coral reef, tropical rainforests or grasslands. And then in a bigger scale, we have biomes, which refer to a large and distinct ecosystem found in different parts of Earth. So they include all living organisms like plants, animals, and microorganisms as well as the non-living factors. So you have, again, like climate, soil, or water, and all these together shape that specific environment. So, for example, you have the tropical rainforest or a desert or a grassland, and all of them are different type of biomes, and each of them is unique by their characteristics and because of the inhabitants they have. And finally, we have the biosphere, which is the part of our planet where life exists by itself. So it includes all living organisms, from tiny bacteria to large animals and their interactions with the environment. So this diverse web of life spans ecosystems such as forests, oceans, um, and so on, creating a rich tapestry of biodiversity that is sustaining our world. Next one, please. So in order to standardize terminologies for prioritizing the conservation and management of ecosystems at global, regional, and even local spheres, and also to help to identify the most critical ecosystems for conservation efforts due to their biodiversity or ecosystem services or the fragility from external exchange, for instance, changes produced by humans. The International Union for Conservation of Nature developed a global ecosystem typology. So this typology aims to cover the Earth's biospheres, including terrestrial, subterranean, freshwater, marine, and atmospheric environments. And this typology employs a six-level hierarchical structure to represent the function and compositional characteristics of ecosystems. So we have three upper levels: realms, biomes, and ecosystem functional groups, and three lower levels down. So biogeographic ecotype, global ecosystem type, and subglobal ecosystem type. So I will emphasize in the first three levels as somehow they ensure a more global consistency, whereas the last three levels promote, like they are used often for local accuracy. So we have realms, which represent all parts of the biosphere. So as I already mentioned, terrestrial, subterranean. We also have 25 types of biomes, which are groups of ecosystems that share common drivers, such temperature or precipitation, and they regulate ecological function. And we also have in this typology 108 ecological functional groups, and they encompass related ecosystems within a biome. So all these groups share standard ecological drivers and they have dependencies. And as a result, they exhibit specific biotic traits. The next one, please. And well, perhaps some of you are already familiar with the term ecosystem services. So it's a term that we often, or that it's often mentioned in different reports or research or even projects. And in general terms, ecosystem services are the benefits people obtain from nature. So they are often classified as supporting services, provisioning services, regulating services, cultural services. And supporting services are the intermediate services generated through the internal functions of an ecosystem. So they neither deliver any product nor immediately impact environmental conditions for human use, but they indeed play a crucial role in sustaining other services that contribute to human well-being. So here we have, for instance, nutrient cycling, soil formation, photosynthesis, and primary production. We also have cultural services, which refer to the non-material benefits that people obtain from ecosystems. So these include aspects like the sense of well-being, the sense of reflection, this sort of spiritual enhancement and connection to culture or heritage or identity. We also have here the next one, we have provisioning services, which refer to the output of materials, nutrients, and energy provided by ecosystems. So these include essential resources such as food, water, for construction, raw materials for construction, fuel, or other sort of products like medicinal products and ornamental resources. And finally, we have regulating services, which are the benefits obtained from the regulation of ecosystem processes. So these services play a crucial role in moderating natural phenomena and mitigating the impacts of both natural and human activities. So we have here flood control, disease prevention, or climate regulation, which are really, really important. And the next one, please. So we have the example of mangroves, which are incredible, valuable ecosystems that provide numerous benefits to both nature and human communities. So they provide indeed multiple ecosystem services. For example, they provide supporting services like habitat, since mangroves provide critical breeding, nursery, and feeding grounds for many species. So they are also highly important for carbon sequestration. We also have regulating services because mangroves provide coastal protection. So they act as natural barriers against tsunamis or coastal erosion. So they are really vital in various initiatives, including nature-based solutions. So they also act as natural filters. They trap sediments and they help improving the quality of water. Mangroves also provide provisioning services because they have this characteristic of providing a lot of food and resources, such as timber or medicinal resources, since some species are used in traditional medicine. And finally, we also have cultural services like recreation or cultural heritage, since many human activities are developed around mangroves.
Maybe very briefly, like to jump in as well. So especially when we are talking about nature-based solutions, and we're talking about like, okay, which other projects or biodiversity related projects which can be financed. I think mangroves, I think, are the ones which are mostly mentioned, or directly everyone is coming to that. And maybe we bring in here the audience as well, and maybe like is there anyone who can share any experience with financing maybe a project? Because always we want to also make the link, not only like not provide the science base, but also always already want to make the link to your activities as DFIs in your home countries. Does anyone has already experience with financing projects where mangroves is in the centerpiece of the project? You can just unmute yourself, share any experience you might have, or you can also use the chat for that. Is there anyone who would like to share any experiences already with financing or like always working on in mangrove related projects? Or maybe for coastal protection, as we have just said, or Rodrigo, please.
Yeah, here at BNDES, we just launched a couple of years ago, maybe. I don't recall if it's 2023 or 2024, on a public call for recovery of mangroves here in Brazil. Roughly $10 million, the total value for the public call here.
And how was it in this case perceived? Were there any concrete project outcomes or?
It's undergoing, not yet concluded, but I can just check here, see if I have detailed results on what they have accomplished so far, and send you some more information on that.
Great, thank you, Rodrigo, for the intervention. Anyone else would like to say something? Want to intervene? Do you have any activities related to mangroves already? Can also use the chat later, no problem. Then I think we just go ahead. Thank you, Rodrigo, once more.
So the next one, thank you. So here we can appreciate the ecosystem service cascade, so which is a concept that illustrates the interconnection of ecosystem services and their sequential impact. So this model illustrates the flow of these services from the environment to society. So we highlight the interdependencies between them. So for instance, let's imagine a woodland that has habitat-specific biophysical attributes. So these include features like tree density, soil composition, plant diversity, and topography. And this woodland might have a mix of deciduous and coniferous trees, well-drained soil, and an undulating landscape. So now there are different ecological functions within this woodland. Tree performs various functions. They include carbon sequestration, oxygen production, and providing habitats for wildlife. So soil processes include nutrient cycling, water filtration, and decomposition of organic matter. And based on these ecological functions, the woodland produces a variety of ecosystem services. So the trees absorb the pollutants and release oxygen, and therefore they are improving the air quality. And the woodland provides habitat for different species like birds, insects, and other sort of wildlife. And also, people enjoy walking, bird watching, and experiencing the beauty of the woodland. And finally, we can consider the benefits, so the flows and the value derived from these sort of services. So visitors will experience mental well-being from spending time in the woodland. So the woodland at the very end is contributing to local economies through ecotourism or timber production. So woodland habitat really exemplifies the ecosystem services cascade by linking all these attributes like the ecological functions, ecosystem services, and all the benefits that they provide to both nature and also people. Next one, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this was a bit like, okay, what we would like to frame concerning ecosystem services. You saw the cascade, and we would like now, before we now deep dive a bit more to the science of the biodiversity as a terminology as such, we would like also to shift a bit of perspective. And often we talk about nature as something which is out there. No, we had already discussed a bit. Okay, what are the associations with nature of each of you? But we would also like to ask you, and this sometimes we normally, what I would assume, not have intrinsically directly reflected. So maybe just think a moment and think about when was the last time you truly felt like a member of a species. So it's not like it's not just a poetic thought, but it's maybe really like even like a powerful lens. How we might want to see, for example, our relationship with the natural world. Just take a moment to think about it. First, what comes to your mind? We see already with you time. Just again, there are no wrong answers, just like your own and individual reflections. A few bit of time to just think about that. There are people typing and thinking, which is good. 8 people have responded already. Any other thoughts? Yeah, I think I just see here COVID pandemic. Yeah, I think this is when we did like a similar exercise with other groups as well. I think in most of the groups, this was one of the interesting things, no, that we during the pandemic, because like the COVID was really spreading around, and unfortunately, quite a lot of people passed away, and a lot of people associated with, no, I'm a human, and a lot of people are dying because of the pandemic. So it really like linked back also like to the fact, okay, that we are a species, we're also there, might be only there for I don't know how many thousands of years only, but it could also come to an end one day. But still, this is just wanted to reflect that this was also like but other people also say yesterday, no, or even with family, or the whole time you feel like a member of the species. On a concert, yeah, okay. Also like a bit more related to, okay, no, when you are in a close group, I could imagine on a concert, and everyone is like cheering for the group, etc. Or for the favorite songs, and really like feeling like belonging to each other. So I think these are some associations which might come to our mind with that. Thank you so much for participating in this poll very actively. And why did we do that and why we asked it? Because now we would like to especially go to the concept of biodiversity, and you will see that species are playing a crucial role here. Hand over back to you, Fabian.
Thank you, Jonas. So yeah, now let's dig a bit more into biodiversity. So here we have the CBD definition for biodiversity. In short, biodiversity or biological diversity encompasses the variation among living organisms from all origins. So this includes terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems. So there are three levels of biodiversity, namely genetic diversity, diversity of species, and ecosystem or ecological diversity. So the first level is genetic diversity, which refers to the range and sum of genetic variation within a population or populations, as we already discussed. So here we can have birds, like some birds may have genetic variations that make them less vulnerable or unique, or make them only be part of a certain ecosystem. We also have in agriculture different type of crops that are essential to resist different sort of pests or diseases, and that are changing climate conditions. And we also have, like human genetic diversity that contributes to our ability to adapt to different diets or climates or even lifestyles. And the second level is diversity of species, which is the number of different species in a defined area. So here we can have, for instance, the rainforest. So lush habitats that host an incredible variety of plant and animal species, or coral reefs, which are underwater ecosystems with very, very immense diverse marine life. And finally, the third level is ecosystem or ecological diversity, which is the diversity of habitat. So it's the place where an organism or a population of organisms is naturally occurring. So that include different life forms within. So here we can have, for instance, grasslands, tundras, rainforests, or terrestrial and marine ecosystems. And the next one, please. So here we have two other very common concepts in the sphere of biodiversity and ecology. So species richness refers to the number of different species in a given area, while species abundance is about the number of individual of each species. So, like many institutions and companies integrate these concepts into planning because it helps to avoid different sort of risks that can be associated with environmental degradation, such as regulatory fines and reputational damage. And also, like understanding these concepts, it's helping in meeting environmental regulations, which are often requiring assessments of biodiversity impacts for different sort of projects. So it is important to bear in mind that there are other indicators to assess the status of biodiversity, but these two concepts are key. Next one, please.
Yeah, maybe also like to add, especially when you're looking at designing or like financing projects, it's really important, like whether the project is talking about species richness. So really like looking as Fabian has said about like the diversity in this case, or like abundance. So we like one species. No, what is the purpose of the project? I think this is very important. That's why important also to understand the difference between these concepts.
Yeah. And well, to identify and prioritize biodiversity areas that need protection, three key strategies include biodiversity hotspots, protected areas, and key biodiversity areas. So biodiversity hotspots are regions that are both incredibly rich in species and under significant threat from human activities. So these areas cover just around 2.5% of Earth's land surface, but they support more than half of the world planet species, and nearly, for instance, 43% of bird, mammals, reptiles, and amphibian species. So biodiversity hotspots are regions that are both um, rich in species and under significant threat from particularly human activities. Then we have key biodiversity areas, which are sites that contribute significantly to the global persistence of biodiversity. So these areas are identified based on rigorous criteria. So they include the presence of threatened species, geographical restricted species, and ecological integrity. So key biodiversity areas serve as a tool for guiding conservation priorities and sustainable management practices. So protecting key biodiversity areas, it's in a way essential to ensure the survival of many species and the health of many ecosystems that provide essential services for all humanity. And then we have protected areas, which are regions that are designated for the long-term conservation of nature. So these include national parks, wildlife reserve, and marine sanctuaries. So they are clearly defined geographically, and they have the aim of achieve long-term conservation of nature, which is associated with ecosystem services and a different sort of cultural values. And in this context, they include marine and coastal areas and terrestrial areas. And for instance, marine protected areas are sections of the ocean where human activities are restricted by governments and different sort of regulations. Terrestrial protected areas are areas that are partially or entirely protected by national authorities.
Again, also maybe here to make the link. Again, here it's also important to understand like the differences of the concepts. Again, like if you get like a project proposal on your desk, like you requiring financing, are they talking about protected areas? We like a rather small scale? Are they talking about really they want to preserve or like work within biodiversity hotspots or key biodiversity areas? Also like to understand these concepts is crucial, especially when you would like to design financing structures or financing options for related projects. And yeah, for that we'll also move on to the next slide. Question for you. Do you know any protected areas in your countries? We're looking only at the protected areas at the moment, so the last of the three categories. Maybe just anyone who wants like to share. You can write in the chat, you know anything, any protected area or even biodiversity hotspot or key biodiversity area in your country. You just collect. Okay, you just went into. Oh, you just unmute yourself. Yes, please.
In Croatia, we have a lot of national parks with
national parks. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so in these parts of our country, these are with species and animals that are protected. Mm-hmm. So that's from my country. Yeah.
Yeah. No, sounds good. Yeah, I think in general, yes, every country has designed or it has like labeled different areas, as you just saw, as might protect areas. And we quickly want to like to show you and demonstrate you. There's a very nice tool which also is collecting all the different protected areas, or even it could be marine or terrestrial. And for that, I quickly stop sharing and would like we go to the tool that to have a look maybe to yours, which you have just mentioned. Give me a second. I think this one here. Yeah. So this is a tool. We have also put the link here, which is talking about. You see the right screen, yes. So it's a protectedplanet.net. It's a very nice integrated tool which you can use in order to look, and you see all green labeled areas are protected areas. And then we have also marine protected areas, which are the blue dots. And you wanted now to look for Croatia. So let's zoom in, because there's really the possibility like to zoom in to different countries. So you see here, no, you see here Croatia. So you have a lot of different areas, and you would also be able here then to click on a certain area, and you see what is the name of it, and then also get additional insights about like location if it's recorded, for example, where it's located, what is the status here, which is the governance type, which is also interesting, like no, whether it's like on a federal level or maybe on a departmental level, who is responsible for managing it, etc., and also and depending on the different levels, which are the different what is the current status. So it's a really nice tool to quickly check. It really provides the first glimpse of, okay, when you, for example, again, have a project, which for project proposal, for instance, you can really likely with this tool check, okay, what is happening there? Is there something, what is this area about? Where is it located? Is there a big city close by, or what is the status? This is a quite useful tool. Similar to that, also like quickly showing you here as well, is this like the key biodiversity area. So this is like what Fabian has explained, similar to what we just saw. We can also zoom in here. You can even search for the address and also then define and identify key biodiversity areas. Let's go to Brazil. Rodrigo, we were in your country now. And then you can, for example, look at the different areas which are in this case labeled as key biodiversity areas, or have key biodiversity ecosystem service functions. And I think you can even say you can even click on it and also have a look and get further information on the different areas. Just like we will provide you we have the links included in the presentation, so you can have a look at it and then play around with it. Yes, Rodrigo, please.
Just thinking about here, because you're mentioning about protected areas, but for example, here in Brazil, we have a lot of indigenous lands that are also, sorry, my video was closed here. We have a lot of indigenous land that's are also important for biodiversity conservation. So I think that's something that we can merge that kind of information in the future. Maybe if you want, we can just discuss that later, Jonas, and maybe put me in touch with people who run this platform and see how they are dealing with the indigenous lands here in Brazil. I don't know if they are here or not.
Yeah, we would need to have a look at maybe here in these areas. I don't know whether you know.
Okay.
We would have to look. Okay, where, for example, there is a TCO labeled, or like indigenous territory like labeled. Normally, and sometimes it's like a sustainably managed area. So there's a different types of different definition of that, but one would need to have to look, for example, here then, okay, is it an area, for example, that is also like a protected area, which also at the same time community managed by indigenous people or indigenous communities. I think this, I didn't have had a detailed look about that aspect, but I think one can really like have a look at it and check, for example, where for example, there's indigenous territory, whether it's also labeled as a protected area, for instance.
Yeah, because indigenous lands here in Brazil are the less deforested areas that we have here, like about 2% of the territory is deforested. So it's something very important for biodiversity conservation as well.
Yeah,
but great to see the tool here. Thank you.
Just checking for Bolivia, for example. In Bolivia, for example, I know because I used to live there. So in the Madidi is like a national park, and there's also like a TCO. Pilon Lajas, for example, is also a natural park, but it's also like a indigenous reserved area, like where indigenous communities are resided there or living there, and making the living out of the and also like supporting the protection of the defined protected area. So this is so I know this, but it's not, as you see, it's not labeled like that directly, but maybe you can have a look here for this one, just to have a first look. Yeah, you see here.
Indigenous territory. Yeah.
So it's great. So you need to know where, and then you can see it. For example, that's indigenous territory as well. Yeah.
Okay, great.
We found the answer to your question. Good.
Great, thank you.
Good. This is what we wanted to show you. Like there are different tools which you can explore further. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay, I think it's the right screen now. Yes. Yeah, this is what we want to show you. But it just showed you again an example. You can then, as you said, we did it for Germany. Not there, and where you have like even like an overview of the protected area, overall protected area, and then have also other data such as, for example, like terrestrial and water protected in coverage, and also marine protected area. So these are the figures you can just check for all your individual countries. Moving forward, let's talk a bit more. Again, I asked you earlier, okay, do you feel like a member of a species? And we did it also. Why? Because yeah, interesting to know that how species are distributed around the world, and especially looking if you think would I have assumed, okay, how many species do you think exist? Well, I give you the answer. There are approximately more than 8.7 million species of living organisms around the world. And this is looking at only on terrestrial species. These are over 5.9 million. But the interesting part here is that only 1.54 million species of these 8.7 have been scientifically described and cataloged. So there's over a catalog of different of these 1.4 million species, but they have been cataloged. And out of these, so these are the Earth known species. Interestingly, there are more animal species than plant species. A few years back, I was not aware of that, and it's interestingly really 54% are insects. And out of these insects, also interestingly, most of them are beetles. So there are more than 400,000 beetles or beetle species described. On the other hand, we see also like that that the plant biodiversity is only like 70%, as you see here. It's really under pressure. So if you look at look around the world, we are replacing wide variety of species with a small number of domesticated crops that serve our needs. No? For example, we have fewer than 200 different plant species that contribute to our human nutrition. So we're talking about food, for example, and food delivery. We talk about rice, wheat, maize, potato, soybeans, etc., etc. And only rice, maize, and wheat alone, so 3 species made alone, provide nearly 60% of our plant-based calories. So that means also we are quite, as humans, also quite dependent on a few varieties, a few species for our nutrition. If you look at the animal side as well, it's something similar. So we see, especially though there are only 5 species, which is cattle, pig, chickens, sheep, and goats, which make up the bulk of our meat for our dairy supply. And together, we're talking about these 12 plant-based species, but it's plus the 5 animal species account for 3/4 of the global food supply. So you see there's a strong dependence on these species. And for example, if there would be a pest or any other disease, as well as climate change and biodiversity loss, this could really lead to a threat for humanity. On the other hand, just a fun fact to conclude this part of the species. Did you know that we are living in the world of chicken, or the planet of chicken? I just used AI to develop that, but there are 3 times as much as chicken on the planet as humans. So we are talking about 23 billion chickens around the world, and the biomass of the chicken exceeds that of all wild birds. So really showing that domesticated animals are becoming more and more, if you're talking about diversity of species. And this is linked and also a bit like to when we're talking about species extinction. So we talk at the moment, there are more than 166,000 species which are listed on the IUCN Red List, which is a list like which IUCN is publishing like on a regular basis to assess like which are the species which are exposed to extinction. And this includes, for example, some of the iconic ecologically important groups. For example, you're talking about 44% of the reef building corals, but also 26% of mammals and freshwater fish, which are which are on the red list. To put this a bit more in perspective, so this is study from the WWF in 2024. It's in the Living Planet Index, so it really shows that the global biodiversity and the species has declined drastically by 73% between 1970 and 2020. That means actually we have lost, nearly 3/4 of wildlife population in just 50 years, which we have to really like to look at and to see how this is moving forward. Why talking about a species extinction? Because it's really much related also to biodiversity loss. So what is biodiversity loss? What does it mean? It actually means refers to the reduction of any aspect of biological diversity, as we have just heard from one of the three areas and categories in a particular area through death, so including extinction, as you just heard. Destruction or manual removal. It can also refer to many scales from the global extinction to population extinctions, resulting in decreased total diversity at the same scale. So this would be like the general definition of biodiversity loss. But on the other hand, we can emerge on that. We can talk about it. But again, let's reflect and think. Everyone, I would like to ask everyone to think for yourself very briefly. Again, we have like here another poll. Where or how do you personally notice the decline of nature and biodiversity? Think about yourself in your daily work or in your private life. Maybe when you are on business trips or for holidays or whatever. Where or how do you personally notice that there's a decline of biodiversity or nature or biodiversity loss? Just think a few moments about that, and then I will also share you one of my experiences where I saw that. But I would like to first of you. Give you a few minutes to think about it. Yeah, we see it in the daily news. No, we have there are newspapers, there are articles, there are reporters reporting from certain events, and sometimes they call it century events, even though I personally don't like this terminology, but okay, but we have other opinions. Pollinators in agriculture, no, especially this would apply to farmers, no? They are threatened by that. They don't have so many pollinators left, might be because of pesticides, etc. Everyday life, again, no, we come across this terminology, I think, in a few times already, and it's good. Fishing, yeah. So if you love to fish in your river, which you always used to fish, and then apparently, there's no fish inside anymore. You might feel personally notice also decline of nature. Walking in the forest, I also like this. This is really true. When you walk to the forest and see, for example, a lot of dead trees, or even like or no trees anymore because there have been some invasive species which have led to extinction, and also like to extinction of certain trees as well. Number of birds are decreased near my home. Yeah, definitely something very personal. Or maybe a few decades ago, you wake up in the morning and hear birds singing everywhere, and which wake you up, making nice sound. But now you don't see or to hear this anymore on that frequent level. Yes, true. Insects in the town, yeah, important, yeah, very nice part. Insects in urban environment, yes. Increase in wild animals in urban areas, also an interesting observation. Yeah, it's true because because their habitat have been destroyed, so they have to look for other areas where they can feed themselves. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, I would also like to tell you one story, and one of you have also mentioned. I have also have noticed that. So my grandfather actually used to keep a special sponge in his car. He called it an insect sponge. On summer drives, for example, no, when he took me to the countryside, he had to stop on a regular basis, actually, to clean the windshields, no, like to clean it, which would be covered in squashed bugs, for example, no, and other insects. Yes, it was very messy, I have to say, but it was actually normal back then. But now, if you move to today, and when I drive with my son over the countryside, I think my son, he doesn't even know that what an insect sponge would be, because I also don't have one. The insects are gone. There's no the windows are clean, and the quiet absence is a really powerful sign of how much of our natural world has already changed in certain areas. And there are several drivers actually which lead to the biodiversity loss, as we have just described. And this is what we would like to have a look at now. So if you look at the drivers, first of all, thank you for really sharing your insights and also being active participation. There are different drivers of biodiversity loss, and we also sometimes call them the big five. No, not to compare like with the big five you might be able to see on a safari, but really like the big five drivers of biodiversity loss. Let's have a look at them. So there can be either direct drivers, which are the big five in this case, and the first is the change in land and sea use. Now, it really refers to how people have transformed natural habitats like forests or wetlands, as we have said, or for agriculture or urban purposes, and with that also declining or like putting pressure on ecosystems. And human activity has dramatically reshaped the planet. This is what we really can take from that. For example, today, like 75% of the Earth's land surface has been significantly altered. Looking at the oceans, for example, 66% of marine areas are under multiple, often reinforcing pressures like overfishing, pollution, climate change, also like is heating up the oceans with also declining ecosystems. And even more striking, I think this is more important even, we have also lost over 85% of the world's wetlands, no, which are the most biodiverse areas in valuable ecosystems, as we have heard earlier. And also the pace of change is accelerating. No? Between 1960 and 2019, for example, we're talking about here in just 6 decades. No? We transformed really 1/3 of the Earth's planet's land surface, and a rate that 4 times higher than it was previously assumed. So we are changing, we're changing like the land and the sea, as humans think we would need it, but this has a strong impact. The second one is you might know, and I think this is quite obvious as well, is climate change. Now, for example, since species ecosystems have evolved to survive under certain climate conditions, for example, temperature change would alter it. Also, they are like their way of living. Example, for example, is found, for example, in the mountain regions. For example, a cold adapted species. For example, there's a so-called snow hare in the Alps in Europe, are being pushed higher and higher as temperatures are also rising. No, and eventually they run out of altitude because they cannot climb higher, because they also don't have any further ways of ground for eating and for feeding. And if we would assume that even we fully protect the peaks of the Alps from human activity, so we label it as protected areas that we have heard before, it won't be enough. This because the species they're not used to these conditions and would extinct because there's just no space where still to go, right? But it's not only looking at the mountains. We could also look at flatter landscapes. For example, a species trying to escape rising temperatures, it might encounter, in this case, linking to the first driver. Might encounter barriers, for example, like cities or roads or farmland or even water bodies. And these obstacles are then block the natural climate migration, no? Because normally species tend to migrate when there's a changing climate, but in this case, it's not possible anymore because of a very fast advancing climate change. There The next one and the third one is direct exploitation of resources. I think it's also quite clear, right? So the unsustainable use of plants and animals really threaten the survival of the species, of the livelihoods. In 2015, for example, 33% of marine stocks were being fished at unsustainable levels. So overfishing is a really big issue, but also illegal wildlife trade and timber harvesting. I think these are the three main areas. For example, like the trade in tropical timber, wild plants, but also fungi for food or medicine purposes, or cosmetic products, or even the trade in exotic animals and plants for the pet market are examples of direct exploitation of our resources. Then another driver is pollution. I think it's also quite clear. Pollution is really the fourth largest driver of global diversity loss, following the first three ones. It includes really toxins like heavy metals, industrial waste, or pesticides, and also especially plastic pollution. And these substances can directly poison plants and animals or disrupt ecosystems in more subtle or long-term ways. No, it's not always like we can directly observe it, but also sometimes the effects are on a long-term basis and degrading ecosystems and with that ecosystem services. I think also sometimes one aspect which is also very common and everyone knows about is also plastic, especially in the oceans. Microplastic is a big issue entering, especially in the food chain. With that, also like we're eating and consuming somehow plastic. We don't know to what degree it will affect us, but it's already there, and this is also it's very much related in this case to pollution. The last one is invasive non or native alien species. Exactly. The number of invasive species aliens per country have risen by about 70% since 1970. Why is this a problem? Because they are invasive species which are spread beyond the habitats are often outcompete native species and disrupt ecosystems and can also cause massive economic damage. There's a study from the UN Nations that has cataloged around 37,000 invasive species and which are responsible for economic loss of $400 billion annually, which is equally more or less to the GDP of countries like Denmark or Thailand, just because they are invasive species are threatening the ecosystem and the domestic animals, which also all have a certain function. Was one more last word about this category. Some scientists even warn of a so-called McDonaldization of the biosphere, meaning that some species dominate ecosystems around the world. We can see this already of this trend. For example, we can see there are some species which are already more or less spread around the globe, which are, for example, rats or goats, pigs, rabbits, even fire ants, wasps. Also, very big issue, especially when here in Germany, for instance, or in Europe in general, like so to say, threatening different bees, threatening bees as well, or the local bees, and with that also like reducing pollination. But also, if you look at marine and terrestrial ecosystems, also the most dangerous ones are gorse, but also looking at terrestrial eucalyptus, for example, but also and other ones as well. So these are the direct drivers, so to the big five, and not to forget about it. Apart from that, there are also some indirect drivers which you quickly want to mention. On the one hand, we have demographic and sociocultural drivers, which mean population growth, urbanization, but also changing in lifestyles, as all influences how we use the land and our resources. With that, also to have direct link, for example, to the first driver we just heard about it. On the other hand, economic and technological drivers, our economic system sometimes or regularly prioritizes, unfortunately, short-term growth over long-term sustainability. And for example, subsidies for fuels of industrial agriculture can also incentivize for harmful practices for ecosystems. But at the same time, technology, for example, can be, oops, I forgot to change it. And technology also can be a threat and a solution. So when you think about, for example, nature-based solutions, but on the other hand, technology can also, on the other hand, advance or enforce biodiversity loss or even hinder that. And the third pillar is institutions and governance. So 3 different policy laws and governance structures are determining how natural resources are managed in a certain jurisdiction, in a certain area. So just assuming then weak institutions, so like a bad governance or a lack of governance in a certain area can also be harmful for ecosystems or for biodiversity. If you look at general, like I don't want to deep dive to that at the moment, and we have discussed already the threatened species, and just like again like a summary of this red list which we have heard earlier, which is actually direct impact on the biodiversity loss which we have heard earlier. Now it's again you thinking about like the now if you think about like a species. Would it matter to you if a species, we have heard there are over 1.4 million recorded ones, even though they're familiar or unknown, when they suddenly went extinct? What do you think? Would it matter to you? Or then you would rate 5 stars? Or if you say, well, no, not at all, I don't know the species, so I have never touched upon it. I've never heard about it, so it doesn't matter to me. So let's have a quick reaction on that to see what are your thoughts about that. I think you're a bit biased already because of what we have taught you so far, but I think it's okay. This is fine. Okay, 9 people have responded already. Let's wait a few seconds. Yeah, I see it already. Okay, most of you say, okay, well, yes, it would matter to you if a species went extinct. Yeah, let's move on and ask another question. Again, what if you think about like the species which is on danger to be extincted or to extinct? What makes a species then worth saving? What do you think? What are your thoughts about that? Existing, okay. What makes a species worth saving if you don't want that this species is extincted? What makes it worth saving the species? For example, through projects, through investments, but also through individual behavior at home or in your community. Existing, every species is worth living. Interconnectedness, function in the ecosystem, yeah. Its importance in the ecosystem, codependency of species, yeah. Materiality in ecosystem chain, richness of our everyday life. I like this one. Life chain, strong relation with ecosystem, impact on the whole planet. Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you so much for participating on that fall as well. I see there are a lot of like interesting thoughts which you have made why it makes sense to save species. And we would like to give you 2 examples. And for the first example, I will hand over to Fabian. Fabian, are you still here with us? He he was kicked out, so I will take over. Let's have a look at bees. And bees, I think it's everyone can understand. It's really, bees are really like a prime example of the critical species whose extinction would have a serious impact for us humans, no? Because we have mentioned already earlier, the pollination is a very big issue, and especially like a lot of crops which we have already mentioned, such as wheat and other, which really are which make our living, no? Which you can really which we rely on. As we said, to summarize, bees are very important and have very important ecosystem service and functions for food security, but also and have a strong economic impact because we have especially if the for the pollination services, but also for the same honey making industry and so on. And last but not least, also they play a crucial role also for biodiversity. So if bees contribute, because bees are contributing to the health of ecosystems, again, by pollinating the plants, but also which supports biodiversity, and the extinction of bees in this way would disrupt all these ecosystems, right? And leading to a cascade of negative effects on the species. No, we heard earlier like the cascade effect in this case, and this would also have a strong or a strong negative impact. Give me a second. Yeah, Fabian, do you want to add something on this example?
Yeah, thank you, Jonas. Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that yes, like bees, they are a prime example of critical species. So any sort of problem with bees, any sort of diminution of their species, like it has a huge impact in many value chains, in many sectors, like for many type of products as well. So yeah, we can continue, Jonas.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. But let's maybe we have a look also in human health. Yeah, this was another aspect. But let's think about critical species a bit differently. And I would like to have another example. It looks a bit weird at the first glance, but let's imagine a car, right? You have a car, and it's made of really up of thousands of individual parts. We have the engine, we have the wheel, we have the doors, we have even tiny screws and wires. And the good thing is that we know what each part does, right? For example, the battery here is missing, the car won't start, right? If a door is gone, it won't close, right? We cannot close the car. So every part of the car has a function. And we would understand the consequences of, in this case, removing one of the pieces. Now imagine that one of these screws, for example, few screws, we can take out them randomly, would be missing. At the first, you might not notice it, right? But over time, for example, the door could rattle, or the window won't roll down, or the windshield wiper fails. Eventually, the car becomes unsafe to drive, right? If, for example, the brakes or the steering fail, we could even enter the crash. And just imagine what would happen if you do the same exercise for an airplane instead, for car. The consequences would be catastrophic, like a lot of lives taken away. If you apply this to nature now, for example, ecosystems similar to cars are made up of countless parts, like plants, as we have heard, insects, animals, and so on, and fungi, microbes, etc. But the difference is, we as humans, we didn't design the nature, right? We don't fully understand what each of the species does. We don't always know what happens when one of the species disappears. And yet species are very vanishing every day. So what I would say with that is losing biodiversity is like removing parts from a complex machine without knowing their function, right? So in comparison, for example, to climate change, we will also have a look in a second. We don't know each function of each species in each species on our planet yet. At the beginning, for example, if a few species might be extinct, our system, our Earth, our ecosystems might be running, but eventually they might also be damaged up. If the systems are weakened, then they fail as well. So we have to be cautious, and I also like to really like to try to prevent in order to not to lose the risk to not be able to live on this planet anymore in the future. This is like just a comparison on that. As I said, like we would like to also linking a bit like biodiversity loss to climate change. So biodiversity loss and climate change are quite deeply interconnected, I would say, but also exacerbating each other. So climate change alters habitats and ecosystems, also leading to species extinction, as we have heard already. And on the other hand, in turn, the loss of biodiversity weakens also ecosystems' ability to sequester carbon, for example, not to regulate the climate, as we have heard, the regulatory function or regulating function as well as services, as well as provide essential services, and again, thereby accelerating the climate change. And here we can see the connection, just like from the Climate Council study, like what would happen in case we have like certain scenarios with 1.5 to 2 degree scenarios. And then also the comparison, like even between the 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius scenarios, I think at the moment we are going more to a 3 degree scenario, would imagine like this would have even a stronger impact on several species and ecosystem services. Just like to want to tackle it from a different perspective, looking now a bit about like how human well-being and benefits what is human well-being and all the benefits we have from biodiversity. You remember, we had like the provisioning services, regulating services, and cultural services, and here on the other hand we have human well-being, or constitutes of human well-being are security, basic material for good life, health, good social relations, as well as freedom of choice and action. Freedom of choice and action would really mean that we can do our choices and have the freedom to make choices to exist without the presence of other elements of well-being. So that means like we cannot take decisions and have freedom without any of the other elements. This is what it means. But now let's have a look at how the different ecosystem services are impacting each of the different categories of human well-being. So let's look at provisioning services. Because again, like recall that these are the benefits we get directly from ecosystems, like food, water, and raw materials, etc. And when they are degraded, they have a direct impact or direct affecting human security by limiting access to essential resources. I think this is clear. Also, they have impact on our material well-being, but they are, I think we have to distinguish, because resources on our Earth are not distributed equally. It really also depends sometimes on where you are located, as well as on the socioeconomic status. So this is important to consider. Also, provisioning services also have a strong link to health. That means nothing about food or clean water, medicinal plants, etc. And they have a strong impact as also on health. And last but not least, also these changes also have like impact on social relations. For example, when the people's basic needs, as we have just heard, are not met, then it can also can strain communities and also deepen inequalities, as I mentioned earlier. An example of it could also be water scarcity. Now, you already see it in different areas of the world, and it would also just assuming declining per capita water availability can negatively impact human well-being, as like an example of that connection. Then let's have a look at regulating services. Similar here, it also have an impact on human security. Looking at how it can affect stability of essential systems. We rely on, as we have heard already, water supply, pollination, food production. And also, on the other hand, also similar again, like to meet the basic material for good life, for health as well. So here you see here the regulatory services are really crucial for the 3 dimensions. For example, regulating services like access to clean water, as we have heard earlier, etc. Can cause several health issues. And last but not least, also similar here, when material well-being, health, and security are affected, so the first three, then also social relations are impacted as well, as similar to the category of provisioning services. Last but not least, here an example as well. So flood management, for example, river canalization, reduces the small floods. So can reduce small floods with that, but especially has a strong impact or intensifies if there are large flood occurrences with a lot of death. There's also billions of damages, which you can, I think, see in the news more or less every day. This is what could be one example. Last but not least, looking at cultural ecosystem services. These similar again, like are linked, or the direct link to material well-being as well as the security are quite smaller. Cultural services influence also how we feel, how we connect with our surrounding, and how we find meaning and joy in our life, for instance, right? But looking at security, especially through the influencers, to social networks, for example, strong cultural ties also to nature, as we have heard earlier in the example of indigenous communities, can reinforce community bonds, while on the other hand, the loss of these connections can contribute to social fragmentation, and with that also weaken and good social relations. An example here would be sacred forests, for example, which, as we have heard earlier, indigenous communities especially use these spaces for spiritual connection, or they feel a really spiritual connection. Also like to preserve traditional knowledge from the medicines, from the plants, etc., and also strengthen the social bonds. This would be one example for that area. So we see a lot of ecosystem services are really providing really important for our so to say, human well-being. But on the other hand, let's also quickly have a look at have a quick look also on that we're talking about now the global economy as such also would be very much affected by biodiversity loss, but also we will discuss it in a few minutes. But on the other hand, also there are different opportunities as well, and with that we would like to close this first part when we have a quick look at it. So there are in total, and when we look at the three different areas, food and land and ocean use, but also infrastructure and the built environment and energy and extractives, there are studies from the WEF really shows that there are a lot of business opportunities by the systems, by the ecosystem services by 2030. So they're really talking about 10.1 trillion in annual business value, and even create more than 395 million jobs by 2030. That's actually nearly 1/5 of the projected global labor force growth. So that's really a high potential. And even like considering that there might be even more, or they be expected even to be more resilient and of better livelihoods than those in traditional business models. If this would mean in case we are transforming the business models to more sustainable ones, more nature conscious and even nature positive, and then this study shows that this is the expectation. Just like to wrap this first part up, I think there are a lot. I hope that you have now a very good first understanding about like what are the different ecosystem services are, what biodiversity is, why it's important, why species are important, and what the difference between abundance and diversity as well. And now we would like to, looking also a bit of time, I think we are good on time. We would like to start a bit like the discussion, and we will move forward with that also in the next sessions of our training program. We just wanted to give you a first glimpse about how biodiversity loss and biodiversity is linked, or nature is linked to the financial system. And for that purpose, we would like to go a different approach and also ask you again to think about a few minutes about the following. Think about a company, a random company. And this company profits rose steadily for years. They are raising for years, and then without any warning, its stock plumped. There was no scandal, no fraud, no war, just silence. So what has happened? What do you think? What has happened with this company? I think you're a bit biased already, so I think think about it. What could have happened with this company? Any guess what you have? So just again use the Slido. Write what has happened. What do you think? Again, company profits rose steadily for years, so there was no problem. Then without warning, its stock plumped. There's no scandal, no fraud, no war, no geopolitical issues, just silence. What happened? Reputational issues, scarce resource, loss of resource. What else could it be? It's replaced with something new. Few colleagues still typing, very good. Policy changed. Supply chain problems, yeah. Better substitute product on the market. Could be, yeah. What else could it be? No sustainable sourcing. Think a bit about like bit about examples, which we have mentioned already, what we have discussed already. What else could it be? Give you one more. There's two more typing. Just wait a sec. Yeah. Transitional risk not included in the business model. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of new things happening here. Younger, aware products buying impacts on companies. Financial management. Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of you have already like very good answers to that. I think also with that also like linking this case study also like or this case to what we have discussed earlier. So what actually happened in this company, which my emergent company, the company really much relied on natural pollinators for its high value crops. No, we have heard already the role of pollinators. We have heard the case of the bees, for instance. And what happened in this case? There was a gradual decline in the local biodiversity, no, because we have to think about biodiversity on a local sphere. So due to pesticide use and habitat loss, for instance, it led to a sudden collapse in the yields from this company. It's an agriculture company. And the investors hadn't accounted for this dependency. So what is the silence? What does the silent means? There's no bees, there are no buzz, there's no business. No? And this would be like more or less the summary of what has happened to this company. And this can happen to a lot of companies who are relying on an intact ecosystem services and biodiversity and really are dependent on this ecosystem services. And with that, we would like to start the discussion and start the presentation thinking about, who bears the cost of biodiversity loss, and then move forward discussing impacts and dependencies. With that, I hand over to you, Fabian.
Yeah, so let's check at some estimates on the impact of biodiversity loss and if someone has to indeed pay for it. So the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, for instance, estimated that inaction on biodiversity loss will cost the global economy between 10 trillion and 25 trillion annually. So that's almost as much as the entire US GDP. That is shocking. That's striking. There are also reports estimating that water-related risk alone will put 7 to 9% of global GDP at risk, meaning a significant portion of the world's economic output is vulnerable to disruptions caused by water scarcity and pollution. So industries such as manufacturing, which heavily relies on water for production processes, will really face substantial operational challenges and increased costs. So this really underscores the need for sustainable water management practices to ensure not only economic stability, but also biodiversity-friendly practices. There are some other estimates providing figures for the agricultural sector with 14 to 18% of its output at risk due to water-related issues. So we can highlight the dependency of agriculture again on reliable water sources for irrigation and livestock. And water-related risk can affect other sectors like manufacture. There are also some other estimates saying that around 2 to 2.5 trillion euros are estimated costs for China and 600 to 800 billion for the USA. So we can really see the potential economic losses that will arise from inadequate water management and pollution control again. And in terms of pollination, as we discussed, the loss of pollinators could lead to decreases in crop yields, higher food prices, and increases food insecurity. So pollination risks are estimated at around 400 billion globally. That's again like a figure that we would like you to bear in mind after this session ends, because it's important to consider that indeed there is a cost associated to biodiversity loss. And let's now explore the relationship between biodiversity, the economy, and the financial system. So biodiversity is not just a background environmental concern. It plays an active role in shaping economy and financial outcomes. So business activities can significantly impact biodiversity, for example, through land use change, pollution, or resource extraction. So these impacts can lead to changes in ecosystems and species populations, which in turn will affect the services nature provides. And at the same time, businesses and financial institutions are deeply dependent on biodiversity. So they really rely on ecosystem services like clean water, fertile soil, and climate regulation to operate effectively, as we already mentioned in the previous slides. So these dependencies are often overlooked, but they are critical to long-term economic stability. So what's really important to recognize is that the financial system is increasingly exposed to biodiversity-related risks. So as nature's ability to provide essential services declines, so too does the resilience of the economy. So this exposure can affect everything from supply chains to investment portfolios. So this section highlights why understanding biodiversity impacts and dependencies is essential not only for environmental reasons, but for safeguarding economic value and financial stability in the years ahead. The next one, please. And understanding the different types of impacts, both direct and indirect, is also crucial for developing effective conservation strategies. So this is especially important when considering that these impacts can occur across various sectors, such as agriculture, mining, energy production, manufacturing, or real estate development. So direct impacts are immediate changes in the state of nature resulting from specific actions. So these impacts can have both positive and negative effects, and they often have a visible and immediate effect on ecosystems and species. So here we have, for example, pollution due to industrial discharges or diminishing of trees and habitat due to land clearing, or positive impacts as well, like conservation efforts through protected areas, as we already mentioned. We also have indirect impacts that, on the other hand, occur as a consequence of another factor with an indirect causal link. So these impacts may not be immediate visible, but they can have significant long-term effects on biodiversity and ecosystem health. So here we have, for example, economic policies like subsidies for fossil fuels that have an impact on carbon emissions and also biodiversity, or habitat fragmentation due to the expansion of cities. The next one, please. And many of you are familiar with the concept of risk and effect, which can be defined as the effect of uncertainty on objectives and effects as a positive or negative deviation from what is expected. Sorry. And in terms of nature-related risks, the most likely to be material for businesses can be categorized as transition or physical risks.
But
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, Jonas.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Very briefly. But I think it's important to understand is that biodiversity loss, if you see it, is not only like a risk, as Fabian just said, like for businesses, but also like can be a systematic risk for the financial sector. And I think this graph, I think, or this figure is really like showcasing that really nicely. So like if you consider, for example, no, like if you consider that nature as foundation, and the Stockholm Resilience Center did something similar here, and also particularly also the network of green financial system and GFS also took this concept over. Really like take really like nature as foundation. And if you link this, for example, to the SDGs, sorry, and looking at the biosphere areas, no, we have then here the SDGs, which is 15, 14, 13, as well as is it 6? I think 6. Are really like the foundation, sozusagen, really like for economic development and also development of societies. And so we just with this chart just like translating what we have heard about dependencies and impacts, and put it into context of the SDGs. No, really like our society, our economy really are relying on the biosphere of the ecosystem service, as we have just heard, from the figures which have been provided by Fabian. And maybe to just like also to highlight the importance, and also they're making the link to the financial sector even more dominantly, since you have all as development finance institutions have really a crucial role. There's a really recent statement also from Frank Elderson, like who is the member of the ECB executive board, who really, again, in one of the speeches, stresses like the importance of nature, and also like discussing like that nature loss can really pose a serious risk to humanity as well as financial stability. So here, really, like we have the link, also that as we know that our economy can really not exist without nature as such. And similar to that, I think everyone knows this chart because it's presented in, I think, in every presentation that you see out there concerning climate, but also especially biodiversity. And this is the Global Risk Report, the recent one from 2025, which is published by the World Economic Forum. Really highlights that biodiversity loss is one of the most critical long-term risks over the next decade. Now you see here biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse, but also critical change in Earth systems, natural resource shortages. And so everything is more or less related to what we have discussed in the last 1.5 hours. So we like to put this into connection. Also, like the report emphasizes that environmental risks not dominate the long-term risk landscape, as just said, but also that biodiversity loss is not only like the only environmental issue, but also there are socio-economic issues which also, on the other hand, threaten health and global supply chains. So again, like also from a business point of view, and also from a company point of view, biodiversity is really an important risk factor which needs to be considered. And with that, we just start now discussing like the biodiversity related risk in a bit more detail. Hand over to you back to you, Fabian.
Thanks, Jonas. So yeah, nature-related risks are risks resulting from the degradation of nature, such as changes in ecosystem equilibria, including soil quality and species composition, and substantial loss of ecosystem services that economic activities depend upon. So this can be broadly categorized as either event-driven or that have a long-term nature, which have an impact on different ecosystem services. And it's important to mention here that you are already familiar with, or many of you are familiar with the term of risks, maybe escalating from another type of risk, from financial risk or for climate risk, but these risks are also translated to biodiversity. We also have transition risks here that are risks to organizations that stem from the misalignment of economic actors with actions that are aimed to protecting or restoring or reducing negative impacts on nature. So this risk can be the result of regulations or policies, legal precedents, technology, or even investor sentiment and consumer preferences. The next one, please. So as we discussed, nature-related transitions risk can arise as economies and organizations are shifting towards sustainable practices and lower environmental impact. So these risks are interconnected and can significantly influence the financial and the operational stability of businesses. So this can be categorized as, for instance, litigation risks, technology risk, market risk, reputational risks, and they all have very specific particularities. So in the case of policy risks, they include potential legal or financial consequences that are the result from non-compliance with biodiversity related regulations, also policy infringements or failure to address associated risk adequately. So for instance, we have policies that protect biodiversity, that can affect land use and resource extraction practices. And in a way, they require businesses to adapt their operations to comply with these conservation efforts. We also have a market risk that are driven by shifts in consumer preferences and market demands. So we are facing now that there is more awareness of environmental issues. So consumers are increasingly seeking sustainable products and services that are protecting biodiversity. So businesses that are failing to adapt to these changing preferences may lose market shares, and they might also face declining revenues. And also, like market signals can become really uncertain. So affecting investment decisions and long-term planning is something that really needs to be considered when considering particularly biodiversity friendly products. There are also technology risks that are encompassing the challenges and opportunities associated with adopting new technologies. So here we are considering, for instance, innovation that supports sustainability, such as renewable energy sources and energy efficient systems that can disrupt existing industries. So we also consider here technologies that can enhance biodiversity conservation, such as precision agriculture or habitat restoration tools that can provide significant benefits, but that at the same time require substantial investment and, again, adaptation for businesses. And we also have reputational risks that are linked to public perception and stakeholder expectations. So companies that are perceived as environmentally irresponsible may face negative publicity, loss of customer trust, and decreased investor confidence. And on the other hand, like businesses that proactively address environmental concerns and demonstrate commitment to biodiversity conservation can enhance their reputation and attract positive attention. The next one, please. So for instance, in the 2024 witness report, it was relieved that there were connections between major financial institutions and the deforestation of Paraguay's Gran Chaco. So identifying banks and investment firms as were identified as financiers of beef companies linked to extensive deforestation and human rights abuses. So this report mentioned that different companies have been implicated in the destruction of over 75,000 hectares of forest in the Gran Chaco region from 2025 to 2023. And this deforestation has been threatening the biodiversity of the region and the livelihood of many indigenous communities, as we were discussing as well. So particularly the Ayorreo Togo Biego Sode community, who face severe threats to their environment and also their way of life. So we would like to ask you, do you see here any category of risk that can arise from this report? Like which sort of risk do you think it could happen based on this information?
And you can write in the chat, activate your microphone. Read once more through and then looking for any volunteer. Which risk? There, reputational risk, litigation risks.
Very good. That's actually what has been discussed. So the involvement of these financial giants in deforestation activities are exposing them to significant litigation risks. So there might be legal actions that may be taken against these institutions for their role in financing activities that are violating not only environmental laws, but also human rights. So lawsuits could result in substantial financial penalties, increased legal costs, and damage to their reputation. And additionally, ongoing litigation can divert resources and attention away from core business operations. So this is further impacting financial performance or will impact the financial performance of this company. And as you also mentioned, there is also a connection to reputational risks. So all these financial institutions involved in deforestation activities may face, of course, negative publicity. So there will be loss of customer trust and decreased investor confidence. And indeed, like these reports findings can damage the reputation of institutions, making it more difficult to attract new clients and investments. So it's really good to have these sort of reports that are showing the light of different operations that many people or public or stakeholders have no idea about, but that it's important to be involved and it's important to act and it's important to ask companies to be transparent in their operation and also in their reports. So yeah, very, very interesting case. And finally, nature-related risks can manifest through various transmission channels. So they are affecting both microeconomic and macroeconomic levels. So these channels help us to understand how environmental changes, such as biodiversity loss and climate change, are translating into the financial and operational impact. So at the microeconomic level, transmission channels directly affect individual firms and households. So for businesses, nature-related risks can impact operations, supply chains, and the financial performance. So a company reliant on agricultural product, for example, may face increased cost and supply disruptions due to biodiversity loss affecting crop yields. Similarly, households might experience financial strain from rising food prices or property damage caused by extreme weather events like floods. And these microeconomic impacts can lead to increased credit risk for banks as borrowers may struggle to repay loans to reduce income or asset value. So it's really important to see the big picture of how biodiversity can impact different aspects of the economy. And on the macroeconomic level, transmission channels influence broader economic variables such as GDP, inflation, and employment. So biodiversity loss and environmental degradation can reduce the productivity of natural resources, and this will lead to a lower economy output and growth. So, for instance, the decline of pollinator populations can affect agricultural productivity. It will reduce food supply and increase prices. So this in turn can lead to higher inflation and reduce purchasing power for consumers. And additionally, environmental changes can also disrupt labor markets. So industries that are dependent on natural resources may face operational challenges and job losses. So it is important here to bear in mind that policy responses to nature-related risks are also playing a very important and significant role in both, microeconomic and macroeconomic transmission channels. So governments may implement regulations and incentives to promote biodiversity conservation and sustainable practices. And these policies can also create compliance costs for businesses, but also open new opportunities for innovation and market growth in green technologies and sustainable products, as we also discussed. So on a macroeconomic scale, effective policies enhance economic resilience and stability by also mitigating the long-term impacts of environmental degradation. So those are really important tools that have to be used and have to be at the same time promoted, not only by policymakers, but also for the public in general, for industries, for the financial sector. And
Yeah.
The next one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think importantly also like the discussion about, for example, transmission channels and also like looking at the microeconomic and macroeconomic perspective. I think we all know it already, like from the climate perspective. No, if you're talking about like transition and physical risk from climate change or reduce from climate change, we have the same discussion. So here we just what has been done is just like to translate this to the aspects of nature-related financial risks. And I think we also in one of the next sessions we will also have a look bit more deeper look at this as well, and also like and then we'll be discussing especially like the nature or biodiversity finance landscape in one of the next sessions, as well as when we look a bit more detail also in the TNFD Task Force on Nature-related Financial Disclosures. We also deep dive and also in that area. But it's just like to have heard about it, okay, and also to take away this is really something which is not new. You have heard about it already for years now with the climate discussion, but in the idea is really like to translate this now into like the nature biodiversity, and also I think in the future will also be more or less translated to social aspects, but this is another discussion. So I think we would like, looking also a bit of the time, stop here at this moment. I think, we are very much punctual on time. We started later. We are a bit over after 3 p.m. here in Europe at least. So I think we would like to first of all thank you very much for your attention, and also like for your lively discussions and also contributions to the polls also in the chat. And I would like now to open the floor also like for your questions, your comments, your sharing your experience also you might have. And yeah, we will stop here the presentation and then have still some few minutes for discussions and some questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Jonas and Fabian, for this presentation. I think it was very inspiring, and I let you member to comment if you have any question, doubt, or comment. Please feel free.
Yeah, as we said, like, no, it's just like the first session. I think there might have been something new for you. Some things you might have heard already, but I think like we wanted really like to provide the big picture, so to say, that to raise the awareness of the different topics. And as you said, Nicolo, great to see that there was something eye-opening for you in there. I think with that we can also build then on the next sessions we will then have, and looking very much forward to that. If there's no direct question, intervention from your side at this stage. Looks not the case. Then hand over to you, Ghislaine.
No, for me, I'm fine.
Okay.
No, it's okay. It was very clear for me. I just want to add that we still have some available spaces for the in-person training in Marseille in September. So please, everybody who wants to join, just register yourself. And we will have, so as Jonas and Fabian told you, at the end of June, the second online session. And also in July, we will have at the end of July, the third session, online session. So this.
Hi, Ghislaine. Just a question. When is the deadline for the registration?
I will send it to you right now. I think I have here. I've sent. Just a minute. I will find it. I think it's here.
Meanwhile, you're searching for that. There was a comment by Risa to recommend that we have some also pre or after reading material provided. Yes, we can do that. We can recommend you some interesting reports or some interesting papers, and we can send it along with the presentation that you can and have a look and also deep dive for your own learning purpose. Good point. Thank you.
Yes, I just put on the chat the link to register your participation to the biodiversity training, in-person training in Marseille. Normally this week I will send you all the information about the logistics issues with hotel and everything. So that, and we are still working with Jonas and Fabian on the detailed program, but you receive the program in general yet. If you not, or if you have some remark or suggestion, please don't hesitate to contact me. I would be very happy to work with you on that. So I think we can stop everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.